from hockeybuzz.com. Back to Philly Pressbox Radio. Bill, we've got questions. We know you have Flyers answers.
Let's get rolling.
All right, Bill. It's been a while. I think the last time we talked to you was right before the season started in October. Boy, have things changed since then. The coaching changed. Claude Giroux traded. A lot of people coming and going. What do you see as the biggest needs for the Flyers right now? They got their coach. We'll talk about him in a bit. But what are the other needs that they have to address first and foremost?
Well, there are so many health question marks with the roster going into next season. Let's start with the one piece of good news. Sean Couturier is fully recovered from his back surgery. It's a type of back surgery the players typically bounce back from fine. And he remember, it seems like a million years ago, but he did start last year with 12 points in the first 10 games. So he was still himself till he got hurt. That's such a big piece of the Flyers lineup. So they should have him back. The not so good news is that it's still status quo with Ryan Ellis. Today we talked with Chuck Fletcher, and he didn't really have an update. He said that he's coming along about as expected. That just isn't good or bad. He's still a ways from even stepping on the ice. It's not known if he's going to be ready to start the season. That's a huge that as much as anything else killed the Flyer season last year. That's half of your top defense pairing. You don't know when or if he's going to be available next year. That's a big question mark. And the Flyers cannot afford another season where you don't know if he's ever going to play. He played only 4 games last year. Had a good first week, and then you only saw him one more time the rest of the year. To me, that scares me a lot about that scenario playing out again over the next year. They found out that Joel Farabee, and we got a little bit of clarity about that when it happened. He suffered a neck injury about 2 weeks ago. He was lifting weights and felt like a popping, pinching sensation in his neck. And turns out he needed to have the same kind of artificial disc neck surgery that why am I drawing a blank? It's been a long day. He's oh my gosh. He was in Buffalo. He's on Vegas now. Why am I drawing a blank? He's only a superstar in the league.
Can't remember, man.
Yeah, but anyway.
How long is he going to be out? Do we know how long Farabee's going to be out?
Farabee will be out 3 or 4 months, so he could miss the first month of the season. So, but at any rate, so he has to have neck surgery, and he'll be, he can miss the first month, be available sometime in November.
Okay.
But I said, sorry, it's been a long day here. But at any rate, so they're going to be without Farabee for some time here, we have the draft coming up in a week, so there's a lot of question marks and not a lot of cap space to deal with. So the Flyers, the question is, do they make a bold move to try to upgrade the roster? Because they still need to upgrade scoring. They still need to cut the goals against average. Travis Sanheim is a year away from being an unrestricted free agent, potentially. That's something they have to deal with this summer. And they have a number of young players. I want to know what they actually have in some of these guys going into next year, whether that's an Owen Tippett or whether it's a Cam York or whether it's Morgan Frost. I mean, there's a lot of question marks. So, a lot of questions, not a lot of answers right now.
Well, Bill, speaking of questions and not sure about the answers, what's the assessment at this point on Carter Hart? They haven't surrounded him with a whole lot. Is the arrow still pointing up on Carter Hart or not so much?
No, I mean, if you look at Carter Hart's season last year, he had a .915 save percentage at the All-Star break. Given how bad the defense was in front of him, it probably cost him a 1% off a save percentage. Anytime you're over .920, you're an upper echelon goalie in the NHL. Now, what happened with Hart was after the All-Star break, he really wasn't at his best, and he was playing through some injuries, and he missed some time, and his final numbers ended up being decent, but not great. I think goaltending is the least of the Flyers' problems. I'm more concerned with Hart staying healthy through an entire season and what the depth behind him will look like. But I don't think I think Hart was actually, relatively speaking, a bright spot this past year. So I don't see goaltending as a problem for the team. I really don't.
All right, we got to talk about the coach, John Tortorella. The Flyers got their man. Some said maybe he was the second choice. I don't know. We know he's won a Stanley Cup. We know he's not afraid to voice his opinion on things. But Cam Atkinson likes him. Is he a good fit for this Flyers team?
I think he is. I think as a coach who will come in and give very clear expectations of what he expects from players. Everybody has to back check. He expects guys to block shots. He expects guys to compete. And if you don't, you won't play for him. Simple as that. So I think that in those areas, there's no gray areas with him. So you know what the expectations will be. Does John Tortorella alone make this a playoff team? No, he doesn't. But he makes it a more competitive, harder to play against team. And, if you get some guys to step up, the number one thing, if the Flyers can take a big slash at the goals against average as a team, improve the penalty kill, be on the plus side at 5-on-5, even if you don't score a ton, then you're going to be a better team and you'll be in the playoff hunt. But as I said, there's a lot of question marks in the team. It's hard to predict them being a playoff team, particularly with now this news about Farabee. And by the way, Jack Eichel, of course, was the player I was thinking of. I whiffed on that.
Joe.
Yeah. But at any rate, I think when you look at this team, you had the worst power play team in the NHL, the second worst power play season in franchise history. I mean, the Flyers don't have an assistant coach in charge of the power play yet, and I don't know what the personnel is going to end up looking like. I just find it hard to think that this team is going to take such a big jump in a year. When the Flyers had the worst season in franchise history, 06-07, and they were the worst team in the NHL that year, they were able to overhaul the roster. And the next year they were a conference finalist. 2 years after that, they're in a Stanley Cup final. I don't think this team can duplicate that, but I do think that Tortorella can bring in a lot of structure. He can bring in an element of, as Atkinson called it, an FU element to the game. I think that they can be a more physical team, a harder to play against team. That's worth something in the standings. And then you have to build from there. I think maybe another year out with more cap space, with the cap ceiling going up, and hopefully a couple of good drafts under their belt, then maybe they can take a jump, particularly if you see some of the younger players, like I said, the Yorks, the Tippetts, the Frosts, take a jump this year. Then I could see them maybe being back in the playoffs another year out. But as for right now, I think it'll be certainly entertaining. I think certainly it'll be like clear cut in terms of what kind of identity he wants the Flyers to have. Talent-wise, they have catching up to do. I don't think there's a question about that.
Well, Bill, one of the players that's a real mystery to me has been Ivan Provorov. To me, it seems like he's a great player when he's in a great pairing. He's an average player when he's in an average pairing, and he's not that guy that creates the pairing. He's the other guy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that if you look back at last season, okay, and I said like he and Ellis had a great first week together, and then Ellis is gone. But after that, they had to have Justin Braun step up to the first pair, and for 2.5-3 weeks beyond that, Provorov was not on the ice for a single 5-on-5 goal against, and he was carrying that pairing. He wasn't producing a lot of points, but he was playing really well. And then he was really up and down over the rest of the season. And I think some of it was asking Braun to play a bigger role than he's capable of. Some of it was just maybe Provorov taking too much on himself. But I think when you look at Provorov's progression in the NHL, first his rookie year was good. His second year was very good. And I mean, look who he was playing with then. He was playing with Andrew McDonald for the most part, and then a little bit with Shane Gostisbehere. Neither of whom were first pairing guys. And Provorov did look like a first pairing guy, and then he had a down year, and then the Flyers brought in Niskanen, and which was a high quality partner, and they had a very good year. And the last 2 years, he's kind of been all over the map. He's still young enough to where I think he could get to that consistent first pair level, particularly with the right partner. Is he ever going to get to the Norris Trophy kind of level where an Olin type is, or an Adam Fox type, or a Cal McCarp? Maybe not. But I think he can be a quality guy who gets you a lot of minutes, gets you some points, and maybe is a step below the top end guys, but maybe in that next category down. But I think you need a little more consistency than he's shown the last 2 seasons, regardless of who his partner is. And I think that is a fair criticism.
Bill, we just had a pretty good Stanley Cup Finals between the Avalanche and Lightning. How far away from those kind of teams are the Flyers right now?
Well, as I was saying, you have to have a couple good drafts here. Drafting and development is a strange animal. The Flyers, and I'm going to use the Hockey News as Future Watch issue because it's impartial and because it's based on consensus from surveys of scouts around the league. Okay, so in 2018, they had the Flyers farm system ranked number 2 across the league. 2019, they were ranked number 1. 2020, they were still in the top 10. And even in 2021, they were just about in the top half. This year, because of guys who didn't develop, because of guys who kind of fallen by the wayside or haven't developed as they've hoped since they've been drafted, they dropped near the bottom.
Wow.
And, so that crew of players that they were hoping would by now have stepped up and be the guys leading the team, the Konechny's, the Frosts, into you. They're not there yet. I mean, Farabee is to an extent, Provorov is to an extent, and Konechny is to an extent. But when you look at the guys who were in that main group, who are the core of the roster, has anybody caught up to where Giroux was in his prime? No, not even close, right? Has anybody caught up to even where Voracek was at the height of his prime, where he was number 3 in the Art Ross race? No, they haven't. And so it concerns me. I mean, if you look at where the Flyers are talent-wise compared to other teams, there's a lot of catching up to do. Even if some of these guys, the Frosts and the Tippetts, take that step this year, are they going to be all-star caliber players or just productive players? I think it's fair to expect them to be more productive, that 50 to 60 point range, depending on how much power play time they get and those kind of things. Are they going to be 90-point guys, 100-point guys, point-a-game guys? Probably not. No. So there is definite catching up to do. I don't think this year's draft is going to produce a superstar player or a guy who's going to step right in and play. So I think part of it is also the Flyers have to create cap space. They have to be a little bit creative this year. And then sometimes that means you're not taking very much back in return, or could you see a guy like James Van Riemsdyk traded, for example, has a $7 million cap hit? Might you have to absorb $3.5 million, which is the max you can take, so you can move him? Yeah, you might have to do that, and you're not going to get much in return. I don't see a ton of immediate help, and I also don't see the best move. It's not that they necessarily might not do this, but creating cap space every way imaginable and going out and putting out a $10 million offer per season on a guy like Johnny Gaudreau. Would Johnny Gaudreau come in and help? Sure he would. As a guy who's a 100-point guy this year, would he lead the team in scoring? Almost definitely. Would he be the Flyers All-Star next season? Really good chance. Does Johnny Gaudreau come in and change your franchise around? Probably not, right? So I think you have to think a little bit long-term here and see where you can make those 5%, those 10% upgrades, maybe in a more cost-efficient way, and work and focus on cutting your goals against. And then a year from now, when the salary cap ceiling might jump, because this year it only went up $1 million and it's been flat, but next year it might go up $3-4 million. you have some guys on expiring contracts, then you might be able to do that and be able to make the big splash in free agency. Maybe make a big hockey trade, where you're be able to move a couple of pieces where you're dealing from some strength. For example, they have some strength on right wing. Could you move a right winger for a center a year down the line? Maybe so. But in terms of immediate help that's out there, I think you might be able to do that, but I think it might be a short-term gain for long-term pain. And I'll give you a big example here. There are rumors, there are rumors out there that Alex DeBrincat may be on the trade market from Chicago. Would definitely be an upgrade for the team. Now, do you put together a trade package, or you're trading this year's number one, maybe another number one, and a Konechny type? Well, if you could get DeBrincat long term, maybe so. But you have a guy who's a restricted free agent after next year, who at minimum, because of the salary, because of the CBA rules, you have to offer a minimum of $9 million for a qualifying offer. And the year after that, he could be unrestricted. You could have him for 2 years and he walks. And then all of a sudden you've traded all of this and you have him for a year and 3/4 and you have to trade him at the deadline. Short-term gain, long-term pain. Unless somehow you improve significantly enough where he goes, hey, this is a place where I can win. I don't know. I don't know. I think personally you have to think long game. And I'm not saying you flush next season away. Part of bringing John Tortorella in is to try to be more competitive. But in terms of jumping up that gap between where they are right now and those teams that are competing in a very tough Eastern Conference, I think you have to do it incrementally.
One final question for me, Bill. Who's the new captain going to be?
I think it's pretty safe. It'll be one of three guys. It'll either be Cam Atkinson, it'll be Sean Couturier, or it'll be Scott Lawton. And I actually, although he's the least marquee name of the three, I like Lawton as a captain. It takes some, it's a lot of pressure to be the captain, but I think Lawton has a lot of those qualities about him. Just being a guy who, even though he's a third line guy, he's a veteran guy who has he has a roster spot, but yet he goes out and he competes every day like some tryout player who's trying to make a roster. That sends a message. He's the first guy when there's a new player who comes to town, who welcomes him, who includes him in team activities, who makes him feel like he's part of the team. Atkinson could do it. Couturier could do it as that silent kind of, the quiet leader by example type, or Lawton. So it'll be one of those guys. I think that decision will be held off until the end of camp.
All right, everybody follow this guy on Twitter. Just at Bill Meltzer these days now, right, Bill?
That's correct.
Nice and easy.
All right, Bill, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. HockeyBuzz.com. Check out the Flyers.
Yep, and also PhiladelphiaFlyers.com. I'm the team reporter for the official site.
Yes, sir.
That's right. All right.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bill.
guys.